Have you ever looked at your to-do list at work and realized that everything on it needs to be finished by Friday and today is Wednesday?
That feeling of pressure and urgency is something almost every working person knows, and today we are going to talk about how to handle it.
Welcome to ClearTalk English, the podcast where you learn natural English for real workplace situations. I'm Emma.
And I'm Daniel. In today's episode, we are talking about working with deadlines. By the end of this episode, you will know how to manage multiple deadlines at the same time, how to plan your work effectively, how to communicate with your manager when time is limited, and what to say when you are working under pressure. Let's get started.
Daniel, let's start with something I think a lot of people relate to. What is it about deadlines that makes them so stressful?
I think deadlines create a feeling of urgency that can be quite uncomfortable. When you have a deadline coming up, every hour feels more significant. And if you have several deadlines at the same time, it can feel like there is no way to do everything well.
And in a workplace context, deadlines often involve other people. Missing a deadline doesn't just affect you, it can affect your team, your manager, or even a client. That responsibility adds to the pressure.
But deadlines can also be very useful. They create structure. They give you a clear target to work toward. Without any deadlines, a lot of work would never get finished at all.
That's true. The challenge is not the deadline itself, it's managing your time and energy in the period leading up to it. And that's where planning becomes so important.
Let's talk about managing several deadlines at the same time. This is very common in most workplaces. You might have a report due on Thursday, a presentation on Friday, and a client call you need to prepare for on Monday.
When you have multiple deadlines, the first thing you need to do is get a clear picture of all of them, write them down, put them in order by date, and then think about how much time each task will actually take.
A lot of people skip that step, the estimation step. They know the deadline exists, but they haven't thought carefully about how long the work will take, and then they're surprised when they run out of time.
Exactly. If you have a report due Thursday and you think it will take 4 hours, you need to make sure you have 4 hours available before Thursday. Sounds obvious, but in a busy week with meetings and other tasks, those 4 hours can disappear very quickly.
And that brings us to the idea of prioritizing. When time is limited, not everything on your list can be treated equally. You need to identify which tasks are the most urgent and the most important, and focus on those first.
A useful way to think about this is to ask yourself 2 questions for each task. How soon does this need to be done, and how much impact will it have if it's late or incomplete? The tasks with the earliest deadlines and the greatest impact are the ones to focus on first.
And sometimes prioritizing means accepting that some tasks will have to wait, or that you will do them at a lower level of detail than you would ideally like. That can feel uncomfortable, but it is part of working under pressure.
Let's talk about planning your work before a deadline. I think this is where a lot of people could make their working life much less stressful by building in more structure earlier in the process.
Rather than starting a big task the day before it is due, try to break it into smaller steps and spread those steps across several days. For example, if you have a report due Friday, you might do the research on Monday, write the first draft on Tuesday and Wednesday, review and edit on Thursday, and submit on Friday morning.
That kind of planning creates buffer time, time that allows for the unexpected things that always happen in a busy workplace. A meeting that runs long, a colleague who needs your help, a computer problem. If you have no buffer, any of these can put you immediately behind schedule.
And planning ahead also reduces the mental load. When you know exactly what you need to do and when,
You don't have to keep the whole picture in your head all the time. You just follow the plan for that day.
Now, let's talk about communicating with a manager about deadlines. This is an area where a lot of people feel uncertain. What do you say if you are falling behind, or if you genuinely cannot meet a deadline?
The most important thing is to communicate early. If you realize on Monday that you will struggle to finish something by Friday, Monday is the time to say something, not Thursday evening.
Early communication gives your manager time to help. They might be able to adjust the deadline, bring in extra support, or deprioritize something else so you have more time. But if you wait until the last moment, none of those options are available.
And the way you communicate matters. Don't just say, "I can't do this." Come with information and ideally a suggestion. Something like, "I'm working on the report, but I've run into some complications with the data. I think I can finish it by Monday instead of Friday. Would that work?"
That kind of message is honest, it shows you are aware of the situation, and it offers a realistic alternative. Most managers respond well to that kind of communication, much better than to silence followed by a missed deadline.
Let me share a personal experience. I once had 3 deadlines in the same week: a project update, a client proposal, and a team presentation, all due within 2 days of each other.
That sounds extremely stressful. How did you manage it?
Not perfectly, honestly. I started with the client proposal because it felt the most important, and I spent too much time on it. By Wednesday, I realized I was behind on the other 2.
What did you do?
I went to my manager and explained the situation clearly. I said, I have 3 deliverables due this week, and I've fallen behind on 2 of them. My plan is to submit the proposal today, deliver the presentation on Thursday, and ask if the project update can move to Monday. Is that acceptable? She agreed immediately. The conversation took about 5 minutes.
And I think that's what a lot of people forget. Managers would rather have a short, honest conversation than discover a missed deadline with no warning.
Completely. And after that week, I started planning my deadlines in a completely different way. I now write out every deadline at the start of the week, estimate how long each task will take, and I never start a big project the day before it is due.
That kind of reflection after a difficult week is really valuable. A stressful deadline experience, handled well, can teach you more about how you work than any normal week.
Now, let's look at some useful phrases from today's conversation. These are natural sentences that come up often when people talk about deadlines and time management at work.
One sentence that is very useful when you are talking to a manager about a timeline is, "I want to make sure I deliver this on time." It shows commitment and planning awareness. For example, "I want to make sure I deliver this on time, so I wanted to check whether the deadline could move to Monday."
Another phrase that comes up when workload is heavy is, I'm working through a few competing priorities right now. It explains why you are stretched without making excuses. For example, I'm working through a few competing priorities right now, so I want to be transparent about where this task sits in my schedule.
A very practical phrase when you need to ask for more time is, "Would it be possible to extend the deadline by a couple of days?" It is direct, polite, and gives the other person a clear question to respond to. For example, "Would it be possible to extend the deadline by a couple of days? I want to make sure the quality is right."
When you want to show that you are being proactive about a timeline, a natural phrase is, I wanted to flag this early so we have time to adjust. For example, I wanted to flag this early so we have time to adjust. I think I'll need an extra day on the data section.
One phrase that is useful when you are close to finishing something is, "I'm almost there, just a few final checks to do." It reassures people that the work is nearly complete. For example, I'm almost there. Just a few final checks to do, and I'll have it to you within the hour.
And a phrase that works well when you want to confirm your understanding of a deadline is, just to confirm, this is due by end of day on Friday. It shows attention to detail and prevents misunderstandings. For example, just to confirm, this is due by end of day on Friday. I want to make sure I have the timing right.
Now let's look at 4 vocabulary words for today's episode.
The first word is deadline. A deadline is the date or time by which a piece of work must be completed. For example, the report has a deadline of Friday at 5 o'clock, so she started working on it on Monday.
The second word is to prioritize. To prioritize means to decide which tasks are the most important and deal with those first. For example, with so many tasks on his list, he had to prioritize carefully to make sure the most urgent work was finished first.
The third word is buffer. A buffer is extra time you allow in your schedule to handle unexpected problems or delays. For example, she always built a buffer into her project plan so that small delays didn't cause the whole deadline to be missed.
And the fourth word is deliverable. A deliverable is a piece of work that must be completed and handed over by a specific date. For example, he had 3 deliverables due that week: a report, a presentation, and a client proposal. Before we finish today's episode, here are 3 reflection questions to think about after this episode. The first question is, think about how you currently manage deadlines. Do you plan ahead, or do you tend to work more at the last minute? What is one thing you could change to feel less pressure? Question 2. Have you ever had to tell a manager or teacher that you needed more time for a task? How did you handle that conversation? Would you do anything differently now? Question 3. Which of today's 6 phrases would you feel most comfortable using in a real work or study situation? Can you think of a moment this week where it might be useful?
Today we talked about working with deadlines, how to manage multiple deadlines at once, how to plan ahead and build buffer time, how to prioritize when time is limited, and how to communicate clearly with your manager when you are under pressure.
Thank you so much for listening to ClearTalk English. Deadlines are a part of working life everywhere in the world, and knowing how to handle them confidently in English is a real professional skill. Keep listening, keep practicing, and we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.